Right, take 43.
Does that mean we're live?
Yeah, but really,
We're finally live at this point?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy. You got the floor, man.
Well, welcome back to the R12 podcast. This is our second episode ever. Can we call the people like a certain name, like R12ers or R12 Squad or Squad R12?
R12 Nation!
R12 Nation.
Let's ride!
All right, either one of those.
Let's ride. Cue the Russell Wilson clip.
Well, first of all, we wanted to say thank you for the support for you guys that watched the first one. I didn't think that it was going to be as many people as it was. It wasn't that many people, but it was cool to just see people's responses on what they thought about it and everything like that. So yeah, we're just thankful for the support.
For sure. It was pretty cool too to have like conversations on top of our conversations, or just to like be able to talk about with other folks like why we did this.
I think it's really cool because I talked to a couple different people, and like each person picked up on a different piece. Like it's really cool how different segments resonate with different people. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was fascinating how I had like 4 or 5 different conversations about different parts of it.
And just to reiterate what we is that how you say it? Reiterate, yeah. To
Reiterate.
reiterate what we said the first podcast, man. We want to just have conversation, and so if you guys ever have a question, have a thought, opinion, whatever you guys think, man. A lot of you guys that watch have our numbers, have our social media accounts or anything like that. So reach out to us.
Hit him up.
You know what we could do? I could set up like an email inbox.
Yeah.
Some people might want to keep it anonymous, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, like if you want to just, so I can probably work on setting that up to where I think it'd be really cool, like to have discussion points about like prevalent things people are just dealing with or questions.
You got some constructive criticism that you don't want us to know that it was you that was tearing us down just to build us up.
If you're going to say something like that, you better say who it is.
Yeah.
Okay, for the record, I think we have fixed Kirk's microphone. Kirk's microphone was a little bit quiet last time.
That's another thing. That's
we
the
had
main
some feedback.
Main complaint.
Kirk louder. We got it going.
Main complaint from people was Kirk not being loud enough. So we tried, or not me, I don't do that stuff, but Jacob tried to figure it out.
We got it. I'm here. Live.
Should be good.
So we said at the end of our last episode that we wanted to talk about social media. During
Can we
this
talk
podcast.
Honduras first, man?
Yeah, so that was another thing too. When we
I want to know about the Honduras trip.
when we loaded the first episode on, I was in Honduras. We were in Honduras, my wife and I, and our pastor at church, Pastor Josh, and then 3 other people from church.
Don't unname them, man.
Caitlin, Kay Fletch, Lynn Murray, and James, Pastor James, another associate pastor at church. We were in Honduras for a week, and I could talk about that trip for a while, and I haven't really been. We got back last night, so I haven't really been able to tell many people about it. But it was awesome, man.
If you had just to explain like one highlight, what would be the one highlight, or maybe the most impactful thing that you felt like you did, or the group did, even if it wasn't you while you guys were down there?
Yeah. Okay. So there was a couple stories that come to mind, and obviously I think as the days go on, these next few days, I'm going to think about them more and more. But I think the one story that my favorite was, so we woke up one morning and we were taking this food up the mountain to this place called Altamira, which is kind of a more rundown place than Victoria. And so we got up that morning and we got all the food, put them in bags, and we started going up. And I was in the back of a truck with a guy named Christian, who was the son of a pastor of one of the neighboring churches in Victoria. And so the whole time I was talking to him, and we would stop at these, they were their houses, but they were shacks. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'd hop out of the truck, and Ricardo would be like, and Ricardo's the guy that we know, our church knows, but I'd hop out, run up to the door, or they'd be outside, and he'd be like, here you go. And you can't say anything to them,
right?
You know? But you just say, I would just say, Jesus te amo, which means Jesus loves you, and point to the sky, because that's all I knew it would say.
Say hola.
And so their faces were just lighting up. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could know what it felt like to get that food in their lives. But we were going up the mountain, and we get to the top. We play with a bunch of kids, give out some stuff, talk, just have fellowship with him for a little bit. And then we head back down. We were probably up there for a couple hours. We're heading back down. And so earlier that week, Ricardo, I had been talking with Ricardo, and he said that one of the hardest jobs in Honduras is woodcutters. So these guys they sell wood that they find on the ground and other people's property, but they have to
just like random like scrap wood,
pretty much. But some of them have like deals with owners of land that they can go on that land and get wood from that land.
So like chop a tree down.
Pretty much, but you can't chop trees down. They have to be wood that's already on the ground. That's either fell or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, and they sell the wood or use it to cook, whatever they do with it. But Ricardo says some of these guys would have to walk, 15 miles. I mean, however far you have to walk.
Just to get to a tree.
Just to get to the land where you could get wood. I mean, they have a lot of wood, man. They're carrying it like this.
Like trunks.
Yeah, they're carrying it like this. Not like a bunch of pieces of wood. Anyways, so we're going back down the mountain, and I see this dude. He's sweating, carrying a lot of wood, man. He's going up the mountain, and so I'm like, this guy's struggling. You know what I'm saying? No shirt. He was wearing shoes, but he just looked rough. And so Ricardo was like, let's give this guy one. So I hop out and I walk up to him, and he says, no. And I didn't think he understood what I was trying to give him. So I said, Ricardo, can you tell him what I'm trying to give him? And Ricardo said a bunch of stuff, and the guy was like, no, and said something to Ricardo and just started walking on. I'm like, dude, what? Like, what? Why is this guy not taking the food? And I get in the back of the truck, and Ricardo looks back and goes, he told me that he already got a bag when we were coming up the first time. But he was walking somewhere with his wood to go drop it off, whatever. And I started thinking, man, this dude is starving, carrying wood up a mountain 15 miles to provide for his family, and he's saying no to food that will be supporting his life and his family for the next week or two when he might not know where he's getting that food. And he said no because he wanted other people to get the same thing that he was getting.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that I put it in my shoes, man. Like, how greedy am I to, like, I have all this stuff in my house, all this food, everything.
Yeah. So much excess.
So much excess. And it just hit me. I was like, this dude is starving, struggling, wood on his back, and he's saying no because he wants other people that hadn't got food to get the food.
Yeah. Think about all the times we get asked if we want extra or like seconds or whatever.
That really resonates too, because like Jerns, we've talked about this recently, like just how much stuff we have and like the distractions that we can get caught up with stuff and like materialism and like, oh, let me get this, and you got a house full of stuff, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's cool stuff, but like, why does that really matter? Like, what's the value of having all this stuff laying around,
And that just, I'm telling you, when he said no, it wasn't like he's saying no, like, feel bad for me, no, like, I'll take it if you really want. It was a happy, no, I already got one, give it to somebody else. It wasn't like a forcefully saying, I don't know, man. The way he said it and the way that situation, man, I about broke down right there because I was like, how much stuff do I have that's just
sitting around?
Yeah.
Including food, like how much food we waste.
That was one of the stories. And then I'll just tell you one more quick one. This was I think it was the next day or the day before. We went to this house to give out some clothes, and it was right off the side of the road, and it was literally a hut. I mean, like, there's just wood, with tin on top, and like animals everywhere, like goats. And this is where I found that picture of the goat. And I'll tell you all a story about the goats later, but
not sheep.
It was a goat.
Sure?
It was a goat.
Right.
But we go into this house. There's an older lady, and she has about 4 or 5 daughters, ranging from probably 21 to 3. I would say probably 6 daughters, and her husband's there too. And we go in, and they explain to us how half their family, all the boys in the family, are gone working in the city. It's just the girls at home right now. And it's one house. It's one hut. I mean, probably this smaller than this room. Mm-hmm. And they show me, and the woman is excited to show me her house. And she goes in. There's one bed, dude. There's
on the floor.
On the floor. There's one mattress, right? And I got to thinking, there's 15 people living here. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that hit me was like, this woman wasn't embarrassed. She was excited for us to be in there. You know what I'm saying? Like she was happy for us to be in there. And I had a conversation with her. I couldn't understand a word she was saying. And I probably talked to her for 5 minutes. And I just nodded my head, said yes.
Just you and her, like no translator, no recorder?
No translator, nothing. It was me and Caroline, I and her. And so I have no idea what she's saying. She's talking, smiling, and I'm just smiling back. But like,
was she kind of older too?
She was older.
That makes me just think of like a grandma and like just like so excited to talk to you. And then your perspective, like you ain't got no idea what she's saying.
But at that point, I was like, man, she just needs somebody to listen. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a bunch of stories, and I think coming back, you just realize how lucky we are to live here, and how, I mean, like, don't take for granted the stuff that we have. Mm-hmm. Just the freedoms we have.
It really helps put things in perspective, and like kind of take a self-assessment of like just like where you're at in life, and like the things that you allow to frustrate you or to distract you or to like hinder just any part of your life. And like, look at what I'm struggling with. Look what they're struggling with. You know?
Yeah. It just puts it in perspective.
Like the lady in the house, like she literally had nothing, but she was not ashamed of that. Like,
no.
You guys come on in. Like sometimes if my house is dirty, like I don't want people there, right? And so it's just like, no, it's just she wanted that fellowship.
She wants fellowship. Yeah. That was it. She just wanted to spend time with people.
Was she a believer? Like
I don't know. I mean, we gave her Lynn gave her a Bible, and her daughter could read. So
read English or Spanish?
It was a Bible in English and Spanish. Mm-hmm. So they have the word, and I mean that's the biggest part of the whole thing, you know. But I think that also. So while I was there, the whole time I had been thinking about social media, because I don't have it on my phone.
Well, that's where we left off last week. Like our ending note last week was, hey, we're going to talk about social media. Right. So like, I think all of us this week are just like just thinking about like social media's impact on your life and like how like different things that apply.
And while I was down there, man, a lot of those people don't even have phones.
Right.
Like they don't have any of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I think that was a good like segue into how much stuff we have and how much stuff we take for granted, stuff we have. I don't know if the right word's abuse, but I don't know.
Just how much we have access to.
Yeah.
Like, especially looking at social media, like there is nothing that basically we don't know about or like that's limited to us. It's just unreal versus that person there.
I know.
Like they don't know what Billy Bob's doing down the road.
No.
Like,
but that's freeing though. We're going to get to that. I want to get to that because
liberating.
I've been going back and forth this whole week on whether I think social media is good or bad, whether I think that it's positive or negative. I think the answer is it's both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's such a good point. Like they don't even know about it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have it in the back of their head.
Right.
So it's like it's almost freeing.
It's like when you like, man. I remember. I think it was our senior year. We did the first Dudes in the Woods trip with the youth. Was it senior? Maybe junior year.
Like when we were in the youth still?
Yeah.
Remember that time when it downpoured? And my man London.
Remember Kenny's tent?
Yeah, Ryan London was sleeping with him. I don't know where Kenny had this old tent from. I think he got it from like an Army surplus store like years ago.
It was a nice tent though. It was a big tent.
But it downpoured. Yeah. My man Ryan London was sleeping in a puddle. Like I remember
wakes up and happens.
Yeah, he comes out of his tent, have his hair is just dripping. I'm like, oh boy.
Oh man.
But okay, so how do we get on? Oh yeah, so liberating, right? So like, I just remember like Dudes in the Woods trip, and like you don't have phone service at all. So like, phone's irrelevant. Your phone dies. You ain't got no service, and it's like, it's just not even on your radar because you can't use it anyways.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, as that week goes on, like, man, it's so nice not to have my stupid phone. Mm-hmm. You know, and like obviously sitting here at home, we could make that same decision, but we don't. Yeah. You know.
Well, and I think
it's just there.
Yeah.
Before we get into whether we think it's good or bad, positive, negative, the pros, cons, all that stuff, I want to make sure that I say that the stuff this is our opinion on it. You know,
it's our experience.
This is our experience. This is our brains. We are not experts on social media.
Yeah.
We don't know the statistics on it. I don't know any of that stuff. But I just want to make sure that you guys know that it's our brains and like. I feel like I try and find answers in myself, but like ultimately, like we're gonna get into the scripture and the word and like figure out what the Bible says about it and what we think that applies to what scripture applies to it, and that's the ultimate rule that I go off of. You know what I'm saying?
We're not trying to like make blanket assessments of like everybody and generalize and everything.
Yeah, there's also not like a specific verse in the Bible that says social media is good or bad. It's how we use it, right?
And I think it's how you use it. And there's certain verses that I think apply to different aspects of it that you can use it with.
Let's talk about the good first, right? Because like I think first things first, like what we're doing is on social media.
Yeah.
Like this is YouTube. So like we can't sit here and just like bash social media. It's like, well, we're on YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
Side note, perfect. Right. So Spotify. We've got the podcast up on YouTube and Spotify. There's a link in the YouTube video to Spotify. So if you rather watch and listen on Spotify, there's a video available, or on YouTube. We're not quite sure how we're going to set up the videos on Spotify or YouTube, whether it be full video on YouTube, full video on Spotify, highlights here or there. But just know we're on both platforms. We're trying to get everything sorted out.
Yeah.
But anyways, positives, social media.
I mean, I know
obviously this is social media. So like, we got to talk about the positives.
One of the positives I said was communication. Like I can communicate with somebody on the other side of the world, and you could do that for an email and stuff like that. But I mean, Instagram, I can literally message somebody that we were in Taiwan and I met Jay, who was our translator, and like I could message him whenever, like this.
That's true.
So I think communication is a huge positive.
Eliminates distance.
Yeah,
like with social media, and I mean you can like physically like see that person, right?
Yeah.
So I think it also brings an aspect of like you can build relationships through that communication.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times with social media, some of the relationships that may be built are superficial, but I think a positive can be is you can continue to reach out to that person.
Yeah, and I think what goes along with that is encouragement, right? Mm-hmm. Because like I cannot imagine growing up not being able to like talk to somebody or find somebody and stuff like that. I can't even imagine that. And that's probably a bad thing, but it's the truth, man. Like I can't, and I think that the communication, you can encourage others, you can find others.
I think, and that lends itself to like, I think of family and friends, like especially like mom's side of the family up in Michigan. Like, I mean, they're 12 hours away. So like day-to-day conversation is a little bit harder to come by. You have to make a really like definitive effort to call whoever, text whoever. Right. But like social media allows like different family members to say, oh, how's such and such happening? Or like,
that's a good point.
Like I just know like if you post something and like Gma and Gpod get to see it and they're like, they feel like they're more a part of it than
like they're
hearing after the fact 3 months later. Oh yeah, Gpod, did I tell you about this? You know, so 100%. I think it definitely helps connect with friends and family.
100%.
That's a good point. It lets you like follow how you're doing. Like it lets your grandma see like how Jude will be doing, right? When she may not get to see like him on a daily basis, but she'll be able to see him like roll over for the first time or say his first word. Yeah.
So. Or like with KJ right now, like I know I was talking to my mom and she's like, I absolutely love seeing these pictures Sydney's posts and like seeing like the daily update of KJ. And it's like, cause like they get to feel like they're partially experiencing that too as it happens.
That's such an awesome thing. And you want that sense of like unity, you know what I'm saying?
A shared
family.
Experience.
Right. Mm-hmm. I had another one just like, kind of like inspiration. Yeah. Like you can see somebody doing something and be like, wow, that's really cool. I want to try it. Or learning from others in that same regard.
It can be real informative.
Oh, that's a huge one, man.
Yeah, you learn so much, man.
Bro.
We can go back and forth on that of being like good information and bad information, right?
We'll get into the bad,
So learning's positive and negative, but like the positive, man, like specifically YouTube for me, right? Like, dude, there's infinite amount of content on YouTube that can be extremely informative and helpful.
Hey, how did we get all this to happen right here?
I mean, all this nonsense.
YouTube.
Listen, before we started this, Kirk was talking about like doing a workout plan and like how you form a workout plan and stuff. And Jacob goes, man, I spent
Wait, what'd you say? I spent hours researching the subject. I've spent hours researching.
You wouldn't believe it, man. Like, I mean, both on YouTube and Instagram, like, there's this
100%.
one hypertrophy style trainer I watch on Instagram. This dude, like, you would not believe, like, the level
knowledge.
of detail and science this man gets into.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, like, fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
because, like, you're dealing with someone who is at, like, an elite level in their field. And,
Yeah.
like, he's just offering this free content of, like, yo, if you're trying to work on this, if you have this weakness, you have pain here, like, you want to, you know, get more strength in this area. Boom, right here it is.
What you need
know?
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another positive is I put growth, whether that be personal or business, but like the business aspect of like if you look at most of the business that are starting now, they grow their brand the most on free advertising on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's word of mouth, but it's not because it's online, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just somebody follows it, they tell their friend about it, they follow it, and they don't have to meet a person to follow it. They just follow it.
Well, that kind of leads to a negative too. Like, say, like pre-social media, like physical contact and verbal communication with people is how things spread. Word of mouth, physically, like this.
Let's go ahead.
Right. That's the way.
Start.
And now with social media, it's like society has turned from being an in-person physical contact with people to virtual contact with people.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, write that as a con. Say,
that's definitely.
Kurt, what did you write in yours? You said,
About the communication?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll get to that in a second. One other thing about positives, though, that you mentioned that I thought was interesting is social media allows you to see, like, when you mentioned growth for, like, businesses, but also, like, personal growth.
Yeah.
Like, the cool thing about, like, going back on my, like, Facebook is seeing the profile picture I had, like, 10 years ago and then seeing where I am now and just thinking back. Like, it just allows a lot of, like, retrospective, thoughts, right? Of, like, man, this is where I was at this time and, like, look at where I am now. Like, look at how God's worked in my life to this point, right? This is what mattered to me then. Look what matters now. And I just think that's a really cool, like, idea to think about too. Is just that, like, self progression or like, just allows you to, like, word I'm looking for, like, look at yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it's almost like a personal scrapbook kind of thing that automatically happens. Like, I remember, I think it was Hodge. He got their dog Griffey, I think is their dog's name.
Yeah.
And I think I saw on Instagram, like, he posted, like, the first year of their dog. It was like a picture from every day or like a picture from every week. And it's just so cool, like, seeing the dog over that year growing and, like, just everything. And, like,
There's so many things like that we don't even know about that are so cool about it. And like you said, man, you said something you just said made me think of, I mean, you could spread positivity. You can spread the gospel. You can spread, I mean, like, you can spread that stuff without even meeting people, which is awesome.
it's a platform.
It's
right?
a platform, and it's ability that we have that is unique to our generation, I feel like.
For sure. And then that kind of brings us to, like, our next point of, like, our generation. This is like a going to the con side of things here and looking at some of the negatives is looking at, like, our lives and mine, in particular. I feel like sometimes, like, my ability to communicate with others has been diminished because of social media.
Yeah, it's like you rely on social media. It's like, I can just message this person. I don't need to call them. I can just message this person. I don't need to walk up to them and meet them. Stuff like that.
Or I don't need to ask this person questions because I have their Instagram account and I can see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's one thing that has definitely been that I've seen impact my life. And then I will communicate with someone that has less of a, like, social media, like impact on their life. Like, man, this person knows how to have a conversation.
Yeah, and you can tell.
It's like, I don't know, there's just a difference. I think I struggle with that sometimes, like sitting down with someone and having an actual conversation.
it's just like those people skills, like those soft skills that like, it's those things that you have to spend time doing to develop. Like, you don't just become a good communicator by reading a book.
Yeah.
Like, you have conversations, you have to learn how to listen. Like, that's side note. Like, I'm so bad about when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I don't actually listen to what they're saying. I'm sitting here thinking, what's my response going to be?
Yeah.
And then they get done talking and I'm like, okay, here's my response. Like, wait, what'd they say?
Yeah.
And, like, you leave like 5 minutes later and, like, what on earth did they even tell me?
Yeah.
Like, it's so frustrating. We're, like, so, again, thinking about ourselves, concerned about what am I going to say? What am I going to say? How, like, especially in, like, a debate or, like, not even a debate, but just, like, a disagreement, right?
Yeah.
you're so concerned with your side, you're not even being open enough to hear what someone else has to say. You know,
So stuck on your ideas, your thoughts.
yeah.
And
Not
I want to
even
make
processing
I want to
theirs.
make sure I reiterate this. Most of the cons that I'm going to talk about, I've dealt with. You know what I'm saying? This has been like my experience, my like thought process of why I think that social media is bad.
Yeah, we're reflecting on what we struggle with.
Right. And so I don't want people to think I'm bashing social media. I'm really just, I think we're really just talking about where we have struggled or where we have fall into like the negative sides of it. I had one of mine, and there's a lot of different things, but I just said that it's like, dude, it's borderline like not reality. Because you if somebody posts a picture on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you're seeing the best picture that they have. And this is me. I mean, I'm not going to post a bad picture. I don't want to post a bad
We
picture.
ain't gonna see no small fish.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I've caught fish that are this big, but I'm not going to post it. Yeah, like I'm just saying, but it's borderline not reality. Like you're seeing when they go on trips, you're seeing them in wherever they're at. You're seeing them at dressed up and stuff like that, which is good. But at the same time, man, like that's not their everyday life.
Right.
You know?
It's really manipulated.
Yeah.
People are able, like, you're able to create the persona or the image that you want.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just think about a picture, right? Like, you get the angle you want, you get the lighting you want, you get whatever outfit you want, like, you get everything set up how you want it, you
Filter
put
you
your
want,
filters on there, you adjust everything you want, like, you're creating whatever image you want for yourself.
Yeah. And I said too, going along with that, is it can be addicting as the one posting it, of wanting that attention, wanting that just that affirmation or people looking at you.
Affirmation's a big one.
And
Yeah.
it can also be addicting for the people looking, because you just get I mean, man, you get so
Caught up.
you'll be scrolling Instagram, and next thing you know, you've been on for 30 minutes.
Dude.
And it's like, where did 30 minutes go? Well, I could have been reading. I could have been mowing the grass. I could have been doing whatever for 30 minutes. Instead, I'm sitting on my couch scrolling on Instagram. Like,
Yeah, that was like what you just hit on was really, I was thinking like social media from the aspect of a creator and a consumer, right? What are you consuming and then what are you creating? Like you're so caught up in
Yes.
my next post, like, and it just like eats away at you. I mean, I've never been huge on social media person. Like I never really posted much anyways. I'm not like,
Jacob
Well, there's different types.
Jacob
of
is the
images.
hardest person to get to take a picture. The hardest. And half the pictures that this man takes, his eyes are closed. Probably the
I'm a slow
majority.
blinker, man.
I don't get how every single picture that this man takes, his eyes are closed.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
yeah,
that's why I
you're not.
couldn't hit
You've
the
never been
curveball.
like, what's up?
blinking too slow.
You've never been a huge like social media poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you can like not post much, but you can still be
exactly.
on it. That's
Exactly.
where
the
that's where I
consumer
fall.
side, like
Exactly.
just think about how many times you just get lost in scrolling.
Yeah.
And like just like boom, boom, boom. And not only that, but like we were talking to Troy in the group text about like how we are like our attention span is so
Yes.
short now.
Yes.
Diminished.
And
Like,
there's an algorithm on these websites, on Facebook, Instagram.
They feed
TikTok.
They feed you
Yeah.
what you want to see.
It's rare. Have you seen that? There's
It
a
makes me kinda
documentary.
freaked out. They know what
There's
I'm
a documentary on Netflix. It's called what's it called? Talking about like it's like a drug, man.
I know what you're talking about.
And it's like based on what you're reacting to, feed them more, feed them more, feed them more, lock them in, and before you know it, you just wasted an hour.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what really ticks me off. Oh man,
Tell me what takes you off.
it's like, yo, all right, get done with workout, get my protein pancake, my milk, take a shower, everything, ready to go to sleep, lay down. It's like midnight. Okay, I'm like, and I always, okay, I got 8.5 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna look at Instagram for a little bit. Like, crap.
Yeah.
I got 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, it makes me so mad. I'm sitting there like pissed off at
Then your
myself.
mind's
I'm like,
running, then
I'm just
everything-
ruining my progress in my lift today. Like my body can't recover in 6 hours, and I'm thinking like, oh
Everything
no.
revolves around lifting.
I'm serious. Like last night, I'm like, oh gosh, like tomorrow I got deadlift. I'm gonna die. Like, oh, I'm gonna get hurt. I'm like, oh my gosh. I just get so pissed. Like,
Yeah.
and again, like it's just your own choice. It's like,
but like
it's all
having,
you anyways.
having your phone, like that's a big thing too, is the accessibility of it now. Like I was thinking back to even just when we were in middle school, I don't think you guys were big on like MySpace. Do you remember MySpace?
I remember I wasn't on it that
Yeah,
much.
did.
but remember, in order for me to get on MySpace, I had to be at home I had to go to the computer to get on it.
It was a lot harder.
Yeah. And you had to be more intentional about it, where like that's going back to like scripture, even though we have it on our phones, like we're not drawn to it, like our brains just don't like get mesmerized by it like it does social media. I just think that's a big difference from even just 10 years ago versus now. Like we don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's just there, like we access it 24/7. So I think that, I don't know what you would categorize that as, but that's definitely a con of like
it's accessible. Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy to like overuse.
Yeah.
I have another one, and I think this is probably my biggest.
Well, let me say one more thing about the consumption thing.
Yeah,
and this is just kind of a side discussion that Woodrow actually came up with this. It was kind of like, what's your diet? Like not food diet, but like talking about what we're consuming. And like Pastor Josh had a message about this months ago, and it's just like a really relevant topic, talking about like what we're consuming, like what content is going into our mind, and how like that literally changes what you think about,
100%.
What's on your mind, what's on your heart, how it comes out in your actions, what you're talking about, like where your mind, what you think about in idle time. And like, man, it's like, I feel guilty sometimes about what I'm consuming and what my mind's thinking about. It's like, how is this at all beneficial, or how is this uplifting, you know? Like,
and it's even subliminal stuff. It's like when you're doing a workout, what kind of music you're listening to.
Yeah.
When you're just sitting down, what kind of show are you watching? And it's stuff that you could not even be paying attention to. But I really do believe in, like, if it's playing, it's going in, it's registering.
Yeah.
Even though you're not thinking about it, it's registering.
Your mind's hearing. Well, dude, I had a good moment this week. So, you know how we're memorizing Romans 12, right? Like
our 12ers. That's what we're gonna call them.
Our 12 nation.
I like that. All right.
It doesn't matter. Either way. So like we're memorizing Romans 12, and like I try to spend a little bit of time throughout the day, just because like it's a little bit more natural if you spend a little bit of time as opposed to just like force feeding for an hour one time in a week. So like I've got the Bible app on my phone, and it's right beside my Instagram app, and I was like sitting there warming up my lunch last week, and like it's in the microwave, and I go to pull out my phone, and I'm like about to click the Instagram app, and I'm like, why don't you just like look at a Bible verse instead? Why don't you work on Romans 12? And like, I don't know. I just think if we made it a point of just like being aware of what we're consuming, because that's why I was thinking about the consumption thing, and like, why does it matter if I check the last update on 4 people on Instagram? Like, who cares? You know, like you got a couple of minutes here, like check the scripture, like work on your memorization.
Dude, what made me think of whenever you talk about getting on your phone and scrolling, I think I've already told you guys this, but yeah, so I deleted Instagram off my phone. I still have my account, so I can re-download it whenever. But I went for about the first week after I deleted it. It was on my second page. This is bad that I even remember this, but it was on my second page when you scrolled one to the left, and it was the bottom right icon. Mm-hmm. And for about 3 or 4 days after I deleted it off my phone, dude, I would open my phone, scroll to the right, be about to click on it, and it wasn't there.
A muscle memory,
dude. And I just sat there like, am I a zombie?
Yeah.
Am I a robot right now?
Yeah,
like, am I being trained to do it? Because like, I was freaked out, man.
Yeah.
That quick.
Well, you don't even think about it. You just like pull your phone out, open, swipe, and do them. Yeah, you're just so used to it. The muscle memory kicks in.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I was gonna say,
hey, dude, put the Bible app there. That's the move.
Yeah, maybe I should do that.
That is a good idea, and that was a challenge that I thought of too. For me, because like if I got my screen time pulled up, I'm sure like Facebook is one that I just scroll on for like, I don't know, both you guys don't use it, but man, there's just so much that you can just look at. But like, what if I took that off of my phone and just kept it on my computer, right? Just to kind of go back 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Still have access to it, but like, I don't know, make it more intentional or more like thought-provoking versus just like passively looking at
just
it.
mindless consumption.
Yeah.
This is the other con that I was about to say before we got on that one. I was sitting there in Honduras and just watching these kids play and just like playing with them and stuff like that, and I was like, none of these kids have a phone. None of these kids are sitting there taking pictures. None of these kids are doing anything on a phone. There's so many benefits to that, but I got to thinking like, dude, if you're going to post it on social media, are you doing the activity to do the activity, or are you doing the activity to take a picture of it and post it on social media? Because that's a huge difference, man. Like, sometimes I fall into the same trap, man. Like I'll go fishing and I'm like, I want to post a fish picture. Like I do, because I want to be like, that's sick, I caught a big fish. But sometimes, man, there's such a freeing like joy that you get whenever you're just doing something to do it. You're not doing it for any other reason other than just have fun doing it.
Yeah. That's a good point. We used to do that all the time, or at least I did, like, you know, a cool basketball picture. Or
Yeah.
like a cool football catch picture. It's like, I'm just doing this for the picture.
Yeah, you're just doing it so other people can see you doing it,
Yeah.
which I think to a point it's fine because you want your friends to see you doing stuff. And like,
Yeah, it's fun.
yeah, it's fun. But I just got to thinking like, man, I want to enjoy life, and I want to do stuff in my life where I might not have a picture of it, but I have it in here. And I have 100% focus on what I was doing, and there's nothing else. And I might not have a picture of it, you know.
Right. There was one thing that I was like, just along those similar lines, thinking about KJ growing up. I had this mindset of like, and I've told Sydney, I'm like, we are not going on vacation like when KJ is like less than 5, because he'll never remember it.
Yeah.
Right. But also, like in those moments, like he will be enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
And, like those are moments like that, like childlike faith is
Joy,
almost what I want to say, or that joy. Like you can't replicate that. That can't be something that you can do when he's 12, right? He may have his cell phone
It's so
being
true,
like
yeah.
overconsumed with that instead of just like enjoying the moment. Like, yes, I think it's worth it now, thinking through that, to go on vacation, like go to Disney World when your kid is 4 or 5 years old, and they will have the time of their life.
Yeah.
Like, even though they may not remember it, like that moment you can't get back. Like that time in their life you can't get back. And I think that's big with like just relating that back to what you were saying.
It's huge, yeah. And I think, I mean, I always heard my parents and my grandparents tell us when we were kids, not even kids, teenagers, about being on our phone at dinner, being on our phone when we were sitting around a living room having a conversation. Whenever you're on your phone, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, don't like just put your phone up, like have a conversation. And you're like, oh, like we can talk tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
that. I thought that. But now looking back, man, like there's time that you will never get back. And I think if I can speak to any of the kids, like the teenagers, like college age guys, like and girl, like what, man, sometimes like just sitting there enjoying each other's company, whether it be your parents, whether it be your friends, whether it be whoever it is, man.
Siblings, yeah.
Like you will never get that time back. And I wish I had some of the time back when I was on my phone.
Yeah.
And I could have been learning from others. I could have been asking my dad questions. I could have been asking my grandpa questions. Like I could have been doing stuff to better myself in life, not compare myself to people I'm seeing on social media.
Yeah, I think going to another con, unless y'all have anything else,
No,
for
keep
that,
rolling.
is the idea that like we don't know it. I think this is something that may happen passively too. Like we were talking about, like what things that we feed in is how we can allow. This is going back to Romans 12. And y'all may have had similar thoughts, but
Yeah.
like social media, like we can conform to what we see, right?
Let me read the verse.
Yeah,
Or you
And
can read the verse if you
Yeah,
want.
that's-
But yeah, just you look it
It's
up.
verse
but
2, but read 1 and 2.
also looking like this made me think back. Of course, this is like what's still the freshest on my mind is like studying Daniel, right? And like it wasn't social media for him, but it was the pressures of like the Babylonian culture, right? And our culture today, like our society is like you got to have a social media account,
Yep.
like, and if you don't, then you're a loser.
Yeah,
basically.
pretty much.
Well, and then all the people you see on social media that are popular, like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
what I need.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that makes me cool.
Yep.
Like, if I don't have that, I'm not cool. That's what I'm striving for.
Yeah, and
you know.
before you even
100%.
notice it, you're wearing the same thing that they were wearing. You're saying the things that they may have been saying
Yeah.
in videos, and it's just like, dang, like if you're not careful of that, you can easily like let social media conform who you
100%.
are, rather than being transformed, right?
And dude, I'll read the verse, and then we'll talk about it. But so it's verse 2, right? Do not
Well,
be
you can
confused.
read 1 and 2.
All right. So it says Romans 12, 1 and 2. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers. By the-
Actually, no. Recite it. Close it up. Let's
I
go, man.
appeal
On
to
the
you,
spot.
therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, for this is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is
GAP.
good and acceptable am perfect. I got more too, but the big phrase there is do not be conformed to this world, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, you nailed it, dude. Mm-hmm. You nailed it.
Yeah. And that's what social media can do so easily. Like, and we don't even notice it.
Which is scary.
But like, that's where it goes back to, like, you know, through the renewal of your mind, right? Yes. We have to constantly be aware of that, and constantly going back to the word. And this is kind of moving into like the next con that I had is like, there's just so much like false truth out there. And like, how are we going to know, like, how are we going to be able to test, you know, what is true?
Dude, yeah.
Like Romans is saying, if we're not constantly being in the word, there's just so much on social media where you see it, you're like, oh man, this sounds really interesting. And it's just like not true. Like, I'm trying to think of like an example of what that looks like, but it's just so easy.
Anything. Everybody has their own truth these days.
Yeah, it's kind of like
and it's sickening.
Wikipedia, right? Anybody can go on there and you can search Jeremy Walker and it can say that.
Whatever, man.
Yeah, it can just really be like distorting of the truth.
And like you said, man, like if everybody has their own truth, if everybody's preaching their own truth and how it's emotion, man. Yeah. They're preaching how they feel. Mm-hmm. Dude, there's one truth. If everybody had their own truth, there would be no truth.
Yep.
And man, I hate that crap. The one truth or your own truth. Mm-hmm. I cannot stand that because I don't have a truth.
Yeah.
The Bible is the truth.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, it doesn't matter what we think. Even us discussing right here, who gives a rip what we think?
That's right.
What's the Bible say? You know?
Yeah, and like that's where I want to get like to scripture because like we can have all these pros and negatives and like what we think would, but like man, I want to see how like the truth relates to it, you know? Mm-hmm. And what you were saying about your own truth, right? So this is the verse I had, other than the Romans verse. Mm-hmm. It's Galatians 1:10. It says, and I'll explain the back of it after I read it, but it says, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ." Well, what is it when I post a picture and I'm trying to make everybody else look at me and see how like I can make them like think I'm all the, what is that? That's serving man. Mm-hmm. Straight up. And it's cool because I was reading it right before this podcast and it talks about how the title of that is No Other Gospel. And it talks about, it's Paul talking and it's talking about other people preaching their own gospel, changing the Bible and preaching it. Their own truth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And Paul was saying, if you're trying to please man and not God, you're not a servant of Christ. You're not a servant of God.
Yeah. It comes back to like your motivation for what you're doing. Like not just social media, but everything in life. Like specifically in social media, like why are you doing what you're doing? Yeah. And like there's nothing inherently wrong with like, oh, let me get on social media. Like there's funny stuff.
100%.
Like, dude, there's some like a couple accounts I follow that just have Ridgeback dogs.
Yeah.
This one lady's got like 6 of them. And they're always just like running around doing goofy stuff.
Right.
Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, you know? It's like, what are you motivated by in what you're doing? Like, specifically from like the creation side on social media. Like, what's the motivation behind this post or that post? Like, is it self-serving or is it for a higher purpose?
Is it for uplifting others?
Yeah.
You know, like encouraging others. And I just feel like it's a slippery slope, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like sometimes I fall into the trap so easily. That's why I deleted it, man. Like, I still have the account, but I don't have it on my phone because I just fall into that, like, robotness of just clicking on it and going and posting and all this stuff. And, like, it makes me feel like I'm in a hole and I can't get out. And it's scary. But like you said, man, there's so, like, it's your reason for it, you know?
Yeah, motivation,
Motivation for it. Yeah. Sure. What cons do you have? You ain't been
so one other con I have, this one's kind of just more specific, but just like, and it kind of goes to the whole truth thing, but like just thinking about like the deception that is on social media.
Yes.
And I guess we've kind of talked about this, but like specifically the lens I'm thinking about is like through like health and fitness and like, you know, just overall like wellness or working out. And like, I don't know, I feel like people like create the image that they want, and like you have like just innocent average people that go on social media and say like, I want to do a workout. Like I'm just, and you go look at like the first dude you see that's just jacked and like obviously like this dude's ripped, like he knows what he's doing.
I didn't get my the
pre-podcast pump, and he's like you got no idea what this dude's doing. Like you got no idea what he actually does behind the scenes. You got no idea if he's on some kind of drugs.
Yeah.
Like
How long?
and by all means, man, anybody do whatever you want to do. I don't care. But like, I think we need to get away from deception and just be like open and
real.
like transparent about like in this specific case with like health and fitness. Like, yeah, I take this and this. Like, don't expect you're going to be a normal, natural person that works a 40-hour week, job that works out 3 days a week for 60 minutes. You're not going to have the same results I have. So don't fall into that, that expectation that like, oh, if I don't achieve that, I'm not good enough. Like, it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of deception.
Yeah.
A big part of that too is like a lot of times that's like all that person does too. And you're talking about like still living like a normal life. Like I don't have an hour to cook each meal of my day.
Yeah.
Like I don't have an hour to train. I don't have time to train 3 times a day. I don't have a personal chef. I don't have, $1,000 to invest in all these supplements every week. Like that's not normal.
I mean, and going back to, this is good scripture tie-in too. I don't remember the verse, but I was talking about it when we were teaching through Ephesians. Yeah. Like of like bodily value is good, right?
But
dang.
Yeah, I know.
I can't remember what that verse is.
Was it in Ephesians?
No.
Or was it another reference?
A cross reference that I had looked at. But like we know, like yes, our body is a temple, right? And like it's important for us to like take care of it, and obviously not just do nothing with it. Like, but we also know that it's of very little value. I think it's Paul, but I can't remember what it is. But it may have been in the same. Oh man, I can't remember. But it's just a thing to kind of go back to as well. Like when you see that, like that is that person's life. Yeah. And like as a Christian, like that shouldn't be your life, right? Like we should have like that importance. Like it should be a priority. But like this is like our walk with the Lord is like what should be, what we spend an hour on each day,
right?
Or like, I don't know how to.
Well, dude, cool you guys nailed it because I think the transparency of it is huge for me. I feel like with my experience with social media, a lot of people that you see on social media, you meet them in person, and you're like, "Who are you, man?" I don't even. You are completely different. So for me, I think that goes back to this whole thing about building relationships, right? I feel so much more confident in knowing somebody when I shake their hand, look them in the eye, meet them, have a conversation with them, and then whatever, leave. But it can be 5 minutes, and I can know somebody better than if I follow them for 3 years. Like it's transparent, man. You are who you are, and like
you can't put on a mask when
you can't put on a mask, man. And I don't want I want people to see me as I am.
Yeah, be authentic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to like the living sacrifice part, right? Because it's like, and I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect, and we're never going to be perfect until Jesus makes us perfect and we go to heaven. But like, man, I want everything that I do, and you guys are the same way. Everything that we do to point to Christ, right? That's a living sacrifice. You're living your day-to-day life, and you're doing it for Christ. So anything that I do on social media that is boastful for me, it's not pointing to Christ. It's pointing to me. And I think there's a fine line, right? Because I mean, sometimes I want to post a picture of a fish, and that's okay. Like it's okay. But I think that the mindset behind it, man, is it's not look at me. It should be look at Christ through everything.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we only know what our own motivation is.
100%. Yeah.
Like I can look at your account and see you did this, but you're the one who knows the motivation behind what you're doing.
And I think that's the main reason why I wanted to talk about social media was for everybody that has it to just look and like think about your own life. I know I have been over the past however long, like just thinking about, all right, like how do I use it? Like where am I, like where do I struggle with it? Where do I like, and I think it's a good thing to be away from it for a little bit, just to see what your life's like.
Fast from it.
Yeah.
Like that's like we were talking about that when we were teaching through the Beatitudes, my man. Ben, like it doesn't have to be like when he's talking about fasting in the Beatitudes, it doesn't have to be something that is like food. Like you can fast from other things that you feel like are pulling you away from Christ. And I thought that was a pretty
That's cool.
yeah, aspect or thing to add on to that.
And like you said, it doesn't have to be black and white. It can be, instead of spending an hour on it, I'm going to spend 15 minutes, I'm done.
Yeah.
And the problem is, and kind of talking about how like you're force-fed social media stuff. Did we talk about idolatry? I don't know. I think we kind of hit on it, but like,
Yeah.
But
From a
talk
different
talk
angle.
about it.
You didn't say the word.
it can so easily become an idol in your life.
Yeah.
And like, I can't like say for like the past 6 months, we've been talking for Sunday school. We've been studying with the kids about the Israelites.
Yeah.
And like their constant struggle with idolatry and like surrounded by all these nations and like worshiping false idols. And like we can sit here and think, man, you're dumb. Like how could the Israelites sit there and worship a little golden calf? Like what a bunch of morons. Like what are you thinking, you know? And then what do we got right here all day, every day? Like think about, I know you mentioned screen time last week. I don't even want to look at it.
I don't either.
I don't even want to know.
If y'all look at screen time,
and that is sickening. So here's another thing, a little like self-reflective thing that I like you can do.
Look at mine.
What is the first thing you think about when you wake up? And what is the first thing you think about before you go to sleep?
Yeah.
And then like when you have idle time in your day, so like if you got like 15 minutes or you're driving the car, what's your mind thinking about? Because the things that come to your mind are inherently like the things that are most important in your heart.
Yep.
You know, and like for me, like I've felt really guilty about it like recently. Like, I mean, if I have idle time, I'm thinking about, yo, when's my next workout? What exercise am I doing? Or how can I make this or that adjustment? It's true.
No,
like,
I know. And
you guys know I get like obsessively consumed with things.
Which can be a
like,
major benefit.
It can be good and it can be really
very
bad.
good.
And this kind of, so like, I mean, you guys know, like for a while, like years ago, like it was like golf for a while. It was like fishing for a while.
Grilling and smoking meats.
Dude, I got so much stupid fishing stuff in the closet. Or like right now it's like working out, right? But like and this kind of goes back to a couple months ago, and I was like really reflecting on like becoming a full-time youth pastor. And I'm like thinking to myself, okay, I get so obsessive with so many things. And I remember you actually told me this, like, why don't you make it something constructive? Like something like that actually has value. Like not that like working out's not good for you, but like something that really carries some weight. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I can obsess over working out. I can obsess over fishing, all these like materialistic, temporary, finite things. Why don't I obsess over my relationship with God?
Yeah.
Why don't I obsess with my ability to witness to people or to pour into and help disciple younger kids?
Yeah.
Like I think we all connect really it's with younger kids, and like it's just a gift that we have, right? And like why can't that be my obsession? You know? And like I mean I'm so thankful now. It's like I'm in this transition period becoming a youth pastor. Like that's what life's gonna be.
Yeah.
Like and it's like so I don't know, just like at peace knowing that like bro, Sunday through Sunday, every day of the week, that is my
That's
like
number one,
absolute focus. And I don't know what my life's going to be like 10 years from now, 15 years from now. I don't know. But like right now, today, nothing else is as important as that right there.
And
you know?
And that's what's the verse where it says, set your mind on things above?
Yeah.
It's Colossians 3.
Colossians
I think it's
3:1
Colossians 3.
Not
1.
things on this earth.
Yeah.
Things above, man. Things that we can't see.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing sometimes, you know, because it's not tangible. You can't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it's instant gratification. You want this now. You want this now. But man, that's setting your mind on things above.
Yeah.
I
I think looking at that as well, like going into this though, like a lot of times you have that conviction, right? And I think that's where like what's called like quenching the Spirit's work in our lives. Like a lot of times we feel that conviction of like, oh, this is what I should be doing, right? But I'm not doing it. That's where Paul says like, this is what I want to do, but I still ain't doing it.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
But like, I think that's a big thing of asking, like, this is in my life too, knowing like, man, I know, 90% of the time I feel like what God wants me to do in just about every situation that comes in my life.
Yeah.
But it's just whether or not in that moment I'm quenching the Spirit or I'm going to let the Spirit
Are
work.
you willing to render?
Yeah, willing to like,
let him dwell in you, bro.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of saying like, no, like I let fear take over or like anxiety or whatever it is. Like a lot of times that's social media too, is anxiety. Like you may not think about it, but like just seeing things like this is big for, having KJ at the house too. Like we see all these things that like you should or shouldn't do with your kids, right?
Yeah, on social media.
Yeah, on social media. And you're just like, what? Is this the right thing to do? Or is this the right thing to do? Like, what are we doing? Is it wrong? Like, it just builds up all this anxiety where it's like, man, just be a parent. Like, just love the kid.
Just do what you're innately given the ability to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
you will be able to parent KJ.
Yeah, the kids, like the adults in Honduras, like they don't have this stuff.
They don't know nothing, man, and they do it. You know?
Yeah, they're
like,
just taking care of the kids. But like it can definitely just build up anxiety, like that you may not even know about, that just kind of unfolds as you're going throughout life.
Yeah.
But you looking something up there, Joel?
I'm trying to find that verse Jeremy talked about, or that you just mentioned when Paul said that, like,
I do what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's in. I thought that was in Philippians, but I'm not sure.
The anxiety part's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and I think for me, man, if I could if I could say anything to the people that are watching, man, just try and go a day without it. Just try and go one day without it.
Mm-hmm.
What's it gonna hurt? You know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, man, there's so many positives to it. So many positives to it.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I think that there can be a bunch of negatives, and I think that we can let it rule our life.
It can very easily become a idol.
Man, there's only one thing that should rule our life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Jesus. That's Jesus Christ in our heart. So, and again, man, I don't have it. We don't have it figured out.
No.
It's a constant struggle for me, man. I want to be able to check Instagram.
Yeah.
And the times I do load it back on my phone, I'm on it. It's not like I'm regulating it. I'm on it a lot.
Yeah. It looks like I at one time had screen time on here, but it looks like I deleted it probably because I was getting so depressed with how much time I was looking at social media and I couldn't control it.
Yo.
So now it's literally turned off. So I turned it on. So next week we'll get some.
Mine's the opposite. This afternoon, I'm like, all right, we got podcast tonight. Kirk mentioned screen time. Let's just take a sneak peek. I went to open it up, thinking to myself, okay, if this is bad, I'm deleting this.
You can turn it off.
Fortunately, it was off.
The screen time.
I was gonna like erase it all. Like, I don't want to get embarrassed because, like, pull up your screen times. Instagram 14 hours. I'm like,
over the last week.
14 hours.
yeah, obviously,
bro.
but still, like.
And we're posting this on social media, so it's like,
Yeah.
I do think there's a way to do it, and it can be very beneficial for your life and for others. And I think that's the main reason for this, right? To help us grow, but also to help people grow. And like I said, man, the first one, I want you guys to interact with us. I want you guys to ask questions in the comments, man. Ask us questions, like say what you think, because like I said, man, we're learning too. And like each and every person has a different perspective on it and a different experience with it. And you can have one person that can be all good, another person that's all bad.
You hear about social media, like people, we didn't think about this, but I guess we did in a way, but like saving people's lives, right? Like
100%.
money that's raised.
Yes.
How would that ever happen if there weren't social media, right? That stuff is bonkers where they raise like $3 million for like a family that house like burned down or something. So it's just a really cool way again where we can like spin it and use it to impact people's lives like in a huge way.
Yeah. Did you find the verse or no?
Gave up.
Do we know what we want to talk about next week?
Oh man, that's a good question. You got
There's
that?
so many things. I also want you guys to tell us I want you guys to tell us what you guys want us to talk about. I have a couple. I have a couple that I want to do before then, and I don't even know if I want to say it. We can just do it next week.
You got that page? You had a page.
Yeah,
where
I have
had
the
all
page.
kinds of potential topics. But anything else on social media?
What's your final takeaway? If you had to
draw a line in the sand.
If Drew was 12 years old wanting an Instagram, and you were going to tell him the positives and negatives of it, and you're going to tell him what your view on social media was, go.
Okay, time out. Like, are we just saying yes, get it, or no,
No,
don't?
I'm saying not on whether you'd let him get it or not. I'm saying, what's your view? How do you feel about it? Do you think it's more positive or more negative for somebody's life?
For your child?
I think social media is a great tool we can use, but it can very easily become a hindrance in our life. Very easily. And I think it's very hard to control yourself on your own.
That's such a good point too, of going back to like what I call kind of the beginning of social media, right? Like it was originally like made to be like something simple, like something positive, right? And now it's just become something that can just be so consuming. And I think that's just an interesting thing of where you were saying, like, it is positive. Like, it's meant to be that way. But just now, even just with all the evil in our world, like, it's just been, like, spun into a way that's seems to be more negative in my mind. Like, regardless, like, of how you look at it. I don't know.
I think you just have to constantly be aware,
Be on check,
and be reflecting on yourself and what you're using it and how often.
One more point that you made that earlier on, we didn't really talk about that much, but whenever you said you're just going to click on your Bible app instead of your Instagram, man, how much of a benefit is it if you just read a verse every time you get on Instagram? What if you just read a verse? I mean, how beneficial would that be? Instead of you're ending it thinking, oh, freaking Billy Bob's over there catching a 15-pounder.
Billy Bob.
Instead you're reading whatever verse it is, and that's what is in your brain, you know?
Yeah.
It's what's your diet? What's your diet like?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What you consuming.
And I think if anybody, like, I know I was about the own truth thing, I was kind of like, but I do think it's important for us to put an emphasis on the truth, man. Like, we don't have the answers, you know? Not everything, like, it doesn't say in the Bible, this is what social media is good or bad for. But, like, there's stuff in the Bible that helps us guard ourselves against it and, like, put our mind in the right spot before using it. Stuff like that.
Yeah. One big one, too, that we didn't kind of talk about either was, like, just the, like, lust or temptation that can be on social media, too.
It's another thing.
Like, I know we kind of talked about, like, you know, it can conform you, right? But also just like you see things that, like, you probably shouldn't
see.
Yeah.
And that image is in your head.
Yeah, right. And that can just distort your, like, perspective on so many things, and how you approach different things as well. You can create an expectation that isn't real, like that Jacob was talking about.
And the fact that a 10-year-old kid can go on Instagram and see the same stuff.
Yeah.
That, like, is scary, man.
Yeah.
It's scary.
When you mentioned Jude, that's like, it's terrifying knowing, like, what is accessible on social media literally that quick to literally an 8-year-old whose brain has no idea what they're looking at or consuming. It's right there, and it's accepted. Not only accepted, in some cases it's like celebrated, you know. And it's like, thinking from our perspective, like, in like young men growing up, and, like, just, I don't know, you're just, like, bombarded with this just filth, man. And, like, just the repercussions of that, like, you might not understand it in the moment, but, like, that has long-term effects on, like, the way your mind is wired and the way you perceive, like, okay, the way you perceive women.
Yeah.
Right? The way you perceive relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And, like, in the moment, like, okay, yeah, whatever, cool, funny, but, like, that literally changes your heart and your mind, and you have no idea. Like that podcast we listened to earlier about that farmer talking about, like, fertilizer, right? Like, oh my gosh, put the fertilizer, look at the crops grow instantly above the ground. Like, this is amazing. Give me all the fertilizer.
Yeah.
Little do you know, beneath the ground, you are destroying the ecosystem, killing the bacteria, the fungi, the microbes, everything. And in 30 years,
all the natural process.
In 30 years, there will be no life on your farm.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same. Like, you're consuming this filth over and over and over. And, like, you have no idea the implications.
Not realizing that you're undermining, like, what is supposed to occur naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you are ruining the designed relationship that God laid out for man and women.
Yeah.
For a man and woman.
Especially being married, especially having a son. About to have a son.
That's, like, what terrifies me about social media. Like, when you thought that, like, my initial thought was, okay, yeah, social media is good, but, like, I don't know if I want Jude exposed to all that garbage.
So you're saying Jude isn't going to have a phone until he's 18? Jay Watt's going to have this man squatting at the age of 5, and he ain't going to get a phone until he's 26.
What's the...
Until you're out of the house.
Dad used to have one, the little beeper thing. It was...
Pager.
A pager, yeah. You get a pager, son. That's it.
Oh, man.
And I want to say one last thing, and then we can get off. The Bible... You know, when you're growing up, how, like, I remember you talked at church one time, bro, and one of your biggest things was, like, caring what other people think. Mm-hmm. I don't remember when. I don't know how old you were. I don't remember how it happened. But I remember
was it, like, in the sanctuary?
Yeah, it was in the sanctuary. Anyways, dude, we're called to be different, right? like Christ makes us different. In a world, we're all sinners, but we're supposed to be set apart. And like, to anybody that's like younger, wanting to like fit in with the crowd, like, oh, everybody has Instagram, I want to have it. Like, man, it's okay to be different. Like, looking back now, I want to be different. Like, I don't want to be like everybody else. And when I'm thinking about my life growing up, man, I put so much emphasis on just fitting in with the crowd, just doing what everybody else did. Whether that applies to social media, but that applies to a bunch of different stuff.
Oh, it does apply to social media.
No, yeah,
the desire to be accepted, and the affirmation you get from your peers.
Yes.
Like, that is a huge driving factor in like the actions you take, the priorities you take, like what you value. Like, are you more concerned with affirmation from other people or not? You know,
that's just like, I mean, it's okay to be different, man. We're called to be different.
Yeah.
If you're a believer and you're a Christian and you're not different from
that hits on a big
from
one.
other people, then like maybe. I'm not saying I'm not a Christian because I want to fit with other people. But what I'm saying is, man, we're called to be different, and that's a big thing.
Talking about that, like the Bible, and like I know in James it talks about like considering trials to be joy as an opportunity to grow your faith. But not only that, but like, and I'm not sure. I wish I knew the verse, but it's something talking to the effect of how, like, when we are different, like we should not be accepted by the world. Like we should face criticism.
That's Jesus talking.
We should face like ridicule. We should face persecution by people of the world. And like sitting here thinking like, how often am I persecuted because of my faith?
Right.
Like when's the last time like you were actually persecuted because you claim to be a Christian? And then take it a step further. Does that mean I'm not being adamant enough and forward enough with what I believe? If I'm not being persecuted for what I believe, is it prevalent in my day-to-day life that I'm a Christian?
Yeah.
I think I'll tell you that right there, that really like hits home for me.
Like we know what things are going to bring persecution upon us and we avoid it.
Yeah.
Like that's me like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Again, that's where it's like allowing the Spirit to work versus saying like, no, I might face the repercussions of this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's just driven by like fear, right? And putting more value on the things of this world and the things that we have, right? All this stuff that we have that we might lose, right? Like I might lose my job if I say something, right? And so I think that's just kind of what that goes back to.
Man, that's big. Like the implications in like corporate America, like from the job perspective, but not only persecution, but also like rejection. You know, like you think about like witnessing to like a coworker or a friend who may or may not, you know, have been raised the way that we were.
Yeah.
And like just that fear of rejection or the awkwardness or like, man, I really don't want to get like into this conversation. So I'm gonna get like really mad or like get in an argument over this, you know, like, I mean, that's just fear, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to end it with this right here. When I first got to Honduras, we were driving. So where we landed in Honduras is about a 6-hour drive to the place we stayed. So I sat in the front of the truck with Ricardo. He's driving the truck, and we were driving up.
Wait, all y'all were in the truck?
We had 2 trucks.
Okay.
3 of us in one, 3 of us in
another.
the other. And we were driving up, man, and like in Honduras, there's mountains. There's mountains everywhere in the roads and everything. And we're just jamming out to gospel music, right? Jamming out. And like Ricardo English is very good, but he has an accent. So when he's singing, like we're listening to Spanish music, like English music, stuff that I can understand, stuff he's singing to everything, bro. And I'm just looking as we're driving, like seeing the mountains, seeing God's creation, like. And we started talking, and he said that when he first started working with the Baptist men, he was given the opportunity at his church or in a congregation, and 2 people said yes out of about 100. It was him and another woman. And he got sent to work with the Baptist men. I don't know if it was called the Baptist men then, but it was with a bunch of Americans. And he said when he got there, he couldn't understand a word that was being said. And he was like asking God why he put him in this situation. He said he was in a bathroom stall and he was just praying out loud. Why did you put me here? I want to do what you want me to do. Like desperately pleading with God to bless him, to like give him the strength to do it. He said there was a dude in the stall next to him who was like, I don't know if he was a translator. I don't know what he was, but he heard him saying that prayer and was like, it was like an affirmation for him that he was doing the right thing. But when he got done with it, that whole story, he told me, man, he said, when you do stuff that, and this might not be his exact words, but the main thing was his exact words. Like when you're doing like what God asked for you to do, like he is faithful to somebody with a desperate heart. Man, when you approach something with a desperate heart, faithful to what God's having you do, man, he is not us being faithful, but he is faithful to a desperate heart, man. And when he said that, I was like, dude, when man, social media, fitting it with others, being different, being firm in our faith, being called out, being set apart, all this stuff, where in our day-to-day lives, man, like we're not taking advantage of how we can do it, man. Man, God is faithful. And when we approach it with a desperate heart, pleading to him to give us the strength and the courage and all the words to say when we need, man, he's faithful and he will do that. But man, I will never forget that, just driving through the mountains, dude, jamming out, dude. Like it was loud. And James and Caroline were in the back, so they were listening and singing too, man. The windows were down. We're in the mountains, man. Like it was life-changing.
Yeah.
That one.
Just a cool experience.
Yeah.
And that's a thing too from Ricardo, just that, I guess, a testimony. Right?
Yeah.
And we talk about that all the time too. Like the most powerful tool we have is our testimony.
Yes.
The things that happened in our life, like how God worked. And I think that just relates a lot to like others, right?
Yeah.
I know it's hard sometimes to like explain like a Bible verse to someone, or explain the gospel or walk through the gospel,
Right.
but then like saying, here's how it impacted my life, I think is huge. And I think that's kind of what Ricardo was getting at.
And there's
there.
just a fire in him, man. You can tell. There's just I want that fire, bro. Yeah. Like there is just a freaking fire, and you can tell when he goes up and he lives it out, bro. Like day to day, you can tell that man's different. And I was just like, dude, this guy is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was our thoughts on social media. I guess my final thing is it's good and bad.
Yeah.
It's your heart whenever you're using it, what you're using it for, and honestly what you're doing on it can make it good or bad. So
it's all a heart condition.
Yep.
Here's the challenge for the week.
Yeah, give us a challenge.
Instead of clicking Instagram or your social media platform of choice, click the Bible app.
Yeah.
Let's try and memorize Romans 12.
And then next week, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it'll be something.
To be determined.
And you guys, man, comment. If you guys want us to talk about something, if you guys have any questions, I mean, we'll interact with you guys. And we want to meet you guys.
The R12ers?
Yeah, the R12ers.
Jeremy just said, we want to meet you guys. I need that handshake so I know it's real.
But I'm serious, man. Like that, we are losing the art. We are losing the art of conversation in person.
Yeah.
Losing it, man. And I want to bring it back. Just like I want to bring back jorts.
How important is a firm handshake to you guys?
Yo.
The worst is when you get one like this.
No, I'll tell you the worst is like you go in for a normal handshake and whoever's hand you're shaking, they just go absolute death grip on you.
Oh,
he's like,
they're trying to act like they're big and strong. They're like, oh, I'm overpower you.
It's just like you shake their hand, it's like.
What's the purpose?
All right, well, that was a good session.
R12 boys.
All right, see y'all next week.
We out.